This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today as we get set up for what is, well, another quiet day in Edmonton Oilers land, right? There's not much going on. Obviously, there's some news on some Bakersfield players heading overseas. Luke Esposito to the Dell, Giannis Caldas apparently heading to the KHL. So that is something to keep an eye on as some of our Bakersfield regulars over the past 2-3 years move on due to the very crowded roster down there in Bakersfield as the Oilers try to shape that next generation of prospects through the farm system. So friends, welcome aboard as we get set up. I've rambled on enough. I will mention I did see a couple of comments this weekend kind of regarding the whole asking for subscribers thing, and I do want to clarify this because I did clarify it in the comments. You see this graphic in almost every single video. I always ask for the subscribe because simply you just never know when that one video that suddenly takes off and blows up is going to be. So I just want to clarify out there that I do it because, right, I know I have to. That's kind of the thing, right? This whole business idea of mine to be getting going somewhere here on YouTube. So unfortunately, part of business is asking people to support your business. And again, I can explain it a million ways Sunday, but just simply put, I do it for a reason. I don't do it to try and be annoying, or I don't do it to try and, right, anger people who have already done it. That's by no means the intention. So with that cleared up, friends, what do we have to talk about? Well, we have to talk about what I've been seeing as the most common theme, well, over the start of this very early week, Sunday into Monday, and that being Ken Holland and his job as general manager. I think it's the Athletic and those boys putting out a lot of emphasis on, right? We are very quiet on the Ken Holland contract front, and I think this is for very good reason. We all knew at the start of Ken Holland's contract as Edmonton Oilers general manager that he would not be the general manager following the end of his contract. We, at the start of this offseason, right, we kind of transitioned from the playoffs to we have a new GM possibly. Like that was literally what happened with Steve Staios rumors popping up almost the next day after the Edmonton Oilers were eliminated by the Vegas Golden Knights. Now what we've kind of settled into is no, Ken Holland is the man. Ken Holland will continue as Edmonton Oilers general manager through the season and into whenever that transition period to the next guy begins following the playoffs, hopefully following a Stanley Cup win here in next summer. So that's where we're at, right? Is we're sitting here, okay, so Ken Holland's our guy for one more year where you've got a roster that some people think is perfect. Some people think is terrible. Some people think will get better at the deadline. Some people think, how are we even going to win a single game this season if we have Darnell Nurse on the roster? So, I mean, there's varying opinions all the way around here in Oilers land on what this Oilers roster is going to be able to be capable of going into another potentially deep playoff run. Obviously, what I have to say is we got into game 4 of the third round 2 years ago. We got into game 6 of the third round or second round this past year, right? Those are deep playoff rounds. There was no sweep in terms of the first 2 rounds, right? You didn't get swept by Vegas. You won the first 2 rounds last year. Colorado, you lost to Vegas. Both cup winning teams is kind of tough, right? Kind of tough to sit here and say, well, the Oilers this or that, because both teams went on to win the Stanley Cup. And when you're a team of destiny, there's 4 teams that fail, not just the Oilers, to beat that team. So when we come down and kind of beat it out to the situation for the Oilers where, okay, what do you got to do next year? Where's the pressure? Who's got to step up? Who's got to perform? We talked about the health aspect in the last video yesterday, simply just kind of throwing it out there that, yeah, the Oilers have to be healthy next year. I'm not saying everybody has to play every game. I'm saying you want your stars healthy. You can't afford to lose somebody for half a season to some freak wrist injury. I know it happens, but you hope that that doesn't happen every year because that's just dumb luck that it happens, period. So we're hoping that doesn't happen to us this year. We're hoping that the Oilers, A, don't allow a guy to slash Draisaitl like they did, but you're also hoping that, right, that just doesn't happen. And, right, obviously you can't do anything other than hope. You can't physically stand on the ice. like you've seen what a big guy I am, all right? I'm not a big guy at all. I'm not going to be able to go stand out there next to Draisaitl every shift and say, hey, buddy, don't you slash him. So, I mean, what else am I supposed to do but hope, right? That's kind of where we're at on that front. So, kind of tough on the injury front. The coaching staff, the management, that's something that I think has gotten a little bit of limelight. But I think based on what I'm reading today, reading kind of the opinions floating around there today, is as much as maybe the pressure is on the Oilers, the players to step up, find that next level. The pressure's on Jay Woodcroft to get over that hump and beat that team that should win the Stanley Cup and be the team that does win the Stanley Cup. I think solely at this point, because he is the only one that can possibly do anything until the skates hit the ice sometime in September, Ken Holland at this point has absolutely every ounce of pressure on him to win a Stanley Cup, right? That is the one man. If anybody is going to be blamed in this season for not winning the Oilers the Stanley Cup, it will and solely be Ken Holland at this point, right? Now, obviously, get into the playoffs and start talking to Oilers fans come playoff time. It'll be the refs. It'll be the other team cheating. It'll be the NHL doesn't like Canadian teams. It'll be, right, it won't be Ken Holland. Not until at least the Stanley Cup playoffs are over. But if the Oilers win the playoffs, we won't be talking much about Ken Holland other than he went out on a high note. But at this point, if you're asking me, right, you're asking me, okay, who do you think has the most pressure because of everything I've kind of come to understand through the offseason and into this week? It is Ken Holland, right? He is going to be the focal point from here until the end of the deadline. This is his last kick at the can. This is his big show, right? This is year number 5. This is let's get up and get this job done, right? 1920, 21, I guess you could say, 21, 22, 22, 23, bingo, 23, 24 is the big one here for Ken Holland. And obviously, too, right, I don't think necessarily all the pressure is on him because that's what everybody wants it to be. I think it's just naturally when you've got an outgoing GM, as it is being made out to seem, I guess you could say, right? I don't know, like, surprise me. Ken Holland might sign a contract with the Oilers to stay on. But starting the offseason the way we did, seeing all the chatter the past few weeks, and then leading Monday with a whole bunch of talk about what's going on with Ken Holland's contract, seems like this is his cup or bust, and this is it. He's done. So, right, it's going to be one of those things is I think as the only guy that can affect the roster in any sense from middle of July till the first week of September, Ken Holland is going to be under the microscope. And then once the roster starts performing or not performing, yes, you can blame Jay Woodcroft. But again, right, like clearly, as much as everybody blamed Jay Woodcroft for what happened with Jesse Puljujarvi this season, clearly Jay Woodcroft was not the only issue at play with Jesse Puljujarvi. So I don't think you can blame Jay Woodcroft for kind of the roster underperforming or not meshing or anything like that, when you've had a full summer to build a roster that should be a winner. Not saying the Oilers won't be a winner because, hello, I fully believe they will. I don't know if you've tuned into this channel before, but I get a lot of comments, why do you hate the Oilers? Just seriously, I seem to see that based on when I have a questionable tagline for the title. Seriously, you guys should know. I am a dreamer, a hoper, and a prayer with the Edmonton Oilers. I go back to my 18-19 coverage. You will see what I thought that team could do with 20 games remaining and one game before being eliminated in the playoffs. So, okay, let's not discuss where my interests lie. But no, that's what I'm saying is right now, and then obviously get into the season and the roster doesn't perform or performs better than expected and you really have a good shot, Ken Holland is still the only one that can trade a player out of town. He's the only one that can sign a free agent that pops up magically like Evander Kane. He's the only guy that can really do what this roster needs to be done to push it over the top, right? Jay Woodcroft can only work with what he has, and of course, by virtue, the players can only produce what they're capable of. So that's where we go from here, friends. Ken Holland under the microscope the rest of the summer. I'm sure this is this week. This is why I'm talking about it now. This will not be the last time we hear of it. And I promise you, we will probably discuss it once, twice, 3 times more this summer. Hey, guess what? We got 2 weeks left in July, 31 days left in August, and it's September, baby. The Oilers are back. So I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for being aboard. And I will formally ask this time, if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. I would love to have you aboard for more Oilers discussion. Trust me, you got a very good edition of Dolynny TV today. I promise you that. Very across the spectrum of what you normally get. So, friends, have a great evening. I'm going to go play ball in some really crappy southern Alberta weather, and we'll talk tomorrow. I'm up on out of here.